Did you know that only 1 out of 10 people survive a trip to Brazil? That statement was a lie, but what isn't a lie is the following statement. Brazil has the largest road network in South America, and the 4th largest in the world at around 2 million kilometers in length, a staggering 86% of which is unpaved. As 61% of all goods in Brazil are transported by truck, the country is extremely reliant on the almost 2 million truck drivers who traverse these roads. So what is it like to be a truck driver in Brazil? Well, as with most countries, truck drivers can be divided into 2 categories: those who are employees of trucking companies and those who are independent drivers. Independent freight transporters, or TACs as they're referred to, compose 68% of all truck drivers in the country, yet have no assurance of rights under the Consolidation of Labor Laws, which is the decree which governs labor relations in Brazil. Though truck driving as a profession has been around for decades, Brazilian trucking was only recently regulated back in 2012, which has left many aspects of the industry in a gray area. This is going to sound terrible, and I guess that's because it is, but for many Brazilian trucking companies there is greater worry about the price of fuel than the well-being of their drivers, as operating fuel costs outpace driver salaries by far as the largest outgoing cost for transport businesses. As such, both independent contractors and employed drivers face pressure to accept subpar and sometimes degrading working conditions. The average Brazilian truck driver works around 11 hours a day and covers 120,000 kilometers of road annually, earning an average income of around $350 per month, though there is great variance based on experience, truck ownership status, and operating range. In this video, I will be mostly focusing on the lives of independent long-range truck drivers, as they most embody and define the trucking industry of Brazil. The 4 main stressors for truck drivers are loneliness, health-related issues, lack of respect, and government regulations. Loneliness, which is one of the defining emotions of a career in truck driving, leads to an array of further issues. There is a strong link between loneliness and fatigue, depression, and burnout, all of which can be temporarily combated with distractions. Distracted and impaired driving is a major problem in Brazil, and truck drivers are no exception to this, with an estimated 10% of drivers falling victim to the abuse of assorted stimulants, also known as rebite, to stay awake at the wheel. Excessive indulgence in secondary activities such as checking their phone or messing with the radio are also a problem among drivers, many of which are looking for some kind of escape from the endless boredom of the road. Brazil, like many countries in the Americas, is lacking adequate infrastructure along roads such as toilets, bathing facilities, and healthy food options. A lack of regard for drivers' basic needs not only impacts their physical health but also their mental health, which, when compounded with intense loneliness, is a concoction for disaster. In addition, sexually transmitted diseases, lack of sleep, and stress greatly impact the quality of life for many drivers. As is all too common in the story, Brazil's truck drivers feel looked down upon by society and are often mistreated because of this by both the general public and the trucking industry. In my Indian trucking video, I mentioned how truck drivers were often automatically deemed at fault for any accident they were involved in, and Brazil mimics this attitude, with people frequently accusing truck drivers of being impaired, asleep, or distracted. So, with all these negative aspects to the job, why do people do it? There are generally 2 answers given when Brazilian truckers are asked this question: either that they don't know how to do anything else or haven't been presented with the opportunity to do something else, or that they chose the career because they wanted to. There's something that draws people to truck driving which surpasses any socioeconomic or ideological barrier, and that thing is the ability to drive a massive vehicle. Brazil has a wide array of trucks from different countries which can be seen in operation, both of a conventional and cab-over style, but there is certainly a preference for the latter. Though tractor-trailer combinations are common, Brazil is also home to a large number of rigid trucks. European companies like Scania, Volvo, MAN, DAF, Mercedes, and Volkswagen make up the majority of companies in the country, with the Japanese Iveco, the American Ford, and the Brazilian Agrale pretty much making up the rest of the market. One Brazilian truck modification, known as Arquear, is unique to the country's trucking culture. This modification sees the rear of the truck being lifted while the front is lowered, a welcome sight for any eyes which have seen the horrific implications of the inverse, the Carolina squat. There are many allowed combinations between tractors and trailers of all varieties, and the country even has their own version of road trains which usually have 2 trailers linked together. Brazil tends to not import very much from their neighbors by way of truck, with foreign goods only accounting for 6.8% of all freight. As such, most freight originates from the south and southeast regions of Brazil because these areas are responsible for 63% of all domestic goods production. The least traveled regions for truck drivers are unsurprisingly in the northwest, where the Amazon rainforest is, though the people who live in this dense dense jungle still rely on the supply chain. There is really only one way for trucks to enter and exit this region, through the Trans-Amazonian Highway. The Trans-Amazonian Highway acts more or less like a regular highway until you reach the edge of the rainforest, where the tarmac turns to dirt and travel becomes more difficult. This highway is to Brazilians what Alaska's Dalton Highway is to Americans, and though it lacks the ice and snow, it more than makes up for it with rain. Since this highway does stretch through a rainforest, it's not surprising that these dirt roads can quickly become thick mud when the weather turns sour, making travel extremely difficult. Along this highway there are a few ferries which help trucks to cross the massive Amazon River, as there are no bridges which cross this physical barrier. Back over on the coast, in several of the larger Brazilian cities, there is also a class of truck known as an urban cargo vehicle, a classification aimed at reducing carbon emissions, congestion, and air pollution. As restrictions are implemented on a municipal level, the specific size and weight regulations depend on the region. But for example, in the city of Sao Paulo, UCVs have to be under 2.2 meters in width, 7.2 meters in length, and must be manufactured in 2005 or later. As a net importer of oil, Brazil is incredibly prone to supply chain disruptions over fuel prices and availability, which has led to multiple driver strikes in recent history. The most notable of these was in 2018, when a combination of economic factors such as a decline in the value of the Brazilian real and government policies which raised the price of oil coalesced in a rush for fuel and a massive strike from the nation's truck drivers. Highways across the country were blocked by disgruntled truckers as fuel became more and more scarce. I could make a whole video about these protests alone, but in the interest of time and my attention span, I'll leave the explaining to the hundreds of news stories which covered the event in real time. If you're interested in the strike, I'll leave some links in the description below. One way that Brazil attempts to combat the lack of gasoline and diesel fuels in the nation is through the usage of ethanol, which can be derived from sugarcane. The Brazilian government loves ethanol so much that there is no way to obtain pure gasoline in the country, as all fuels at the very minimum contain 20% ethanol as of 2007, though the laws around ethanol mixtures change often depending on gasoline availability and government policy. This has led to a rise in flex fuel cars, which are engineered to run on any combination of gasoline and ethanol. The idea of a flexible fuel vehicle does not only apply to cars though, as there have been flex fuel trucks which have been sold in the country, usually running on a combination of ethanol and diesel. I wish I could find more information on these and how common they are. I know they're mostly a relic of the past, but the sources are pretty dry, so Brazilians feel free to correct me or add on in the comments below. Another thing I wanted to mention is Carga Pesada, which translates to heavy load, a dramatic TV show which ran from 1979 to 1981, and covered the life of two Brazilian truck drivers and their massive Scania truck. I actually was able to find a few episodes online which I watched in complete confusion because I don't speak Portuguese at all, but I have to say, even without any understanding, it was still fairly entertaining. Truck drivers, no matter the country, live on the edge of society. Not only their careers, but their way of life is almost certain to end by the turn of the century. Existent in every truck cab on every street in every country is a truck driver, one part of a massive network of individuals living a lifestyle both our ancestors and descendants could never dream of. While the supply chain will continue, for better or worse, it will be managed by mindless computers, who, as far as we can tell right now, will have no appreciation or knowledge for the culture which was born of their job. I just want to say thank you to all of you guys for watching these videos. Also, if you're interested, we've got a Discord now, so that's pretty cool. To be honest, I've never really used it before, but I guess since I exist solely as a figment of your imagination on the internet, Discord is the only way to prove that I'm real.